Welcome to the Chiefs Way. Now mash that subscribe button or drop and give me 50.
Hey YouTube, today I want to talk about what can happen to your battery bank if you let it get quite a bit low for a period of time before charging it back up. So if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. Okay, recently we have a lot of bad weather here in Wisconsin and a lot of clouds for day after day after day, and the battery bank ran down. I think it got down maybe around 20%. Okay, and with 600 amp hours, I mean, that's still some power left, but it got pretty low. But what I discovered recently is, let's scroll on down here, these voltage spikes on the max battery volt. You'll see that on the 7th it registered 16.3, on the 9th it registered 18.8, and on the 11th today it registered again 16.3. I mean, there's some sun today, so the bank got full. And when the bank got full, instead of stopping at like 14.5, there was a voltage spike that went up, and this just recorded that spike. It didn't, like, the voltage wasn't sustained at 16.3 or 18.8 for any period of time. It was just, a spike, and the app recorded that spike. So what happens when you see these spikes is one or more of the batteries are slightly out of balance. Okay, that means one cell is like much higher than the rest, or most likely one cell is much lower than the rest. So as it's charging up and charging up and charging up in the bank, it gets to a point where one of the cells exceeds 13.65 volts. And the BMS will record a cell over voltage error and shut off the BMS and shut down the battery, because they don't want to overcharge that single cell. So what happens when the BMS cuts off, you get this voltage spike. It records like a voltage spike when it cuts off. So that's what we're doing. So now what we have to do is we have to go to our battery bank and figure out which battery or batteries are out of balance. So let's do that. Okay, now that we've saw that we got those huge spikes when the battery gets full in voltage, so we got at least one or more of the batteries is a little bit out of balance from like when I told you the last time. They ran down pretty darn low because we had bad sun for a while, and I just let them run and got them low and charged them back up. Now two of the batteries are slightly out of balance, so we're going to show how we figure out which ones. So if you look right now, we'll see that there's like just a minus 1 amp draw. Okay, 1 amp draw. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I got my ammeter. You got it zeroed. Down we look at this battery. This battery's got about 0.1. This battery's got about 0.2. This battery's got about 0.4. This middle battery, get it on there, okay, has about 0.3. All right, now we'll see the two culprits. Okay, we'll check this battery. Okay. All right, we get it on there. Oh, I have it on hold. Hold on, it got pressed on hold. That's what that beep was. Re-zero it. All right, now I'll put it on this battery, and basically you see we're getting like 0.04. Okay, that's nothing. Re-zero it. See, it always shows a little bit. We put it on there and it's not getting anything. So this battery is a problem. And if we look at this battery, it's doing the same thing, really getting nothing compared to the other ones. So what we're gonna do now, sorry about that finger. So what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna turn on this light and create some more draw. So now we're up to about 9 amps almost. So we'll go back down and check this one. All right, that one's drawn about 1 amp. This one's drawn about 1.5. This drawn almost 2. So let's take a look at these batteries again. Nothing. All right. Let's check the other one. Oh, see, this one's just kicked on now. So once we start putting a draw on there, the voltage has gone down enough where it's below, you know, it's at the voltage of this battery. So this battery's BMS is turned back on. Okay. Let's go back and check this one. See, this one is still off. Okay. It's not really outputting anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to let this run here a little while, and then we're going to check it, because once this voltage here gets down enough, this battery, the BMS will kick in. So we're going to wait and see that. Okay, it's ran long enough that this battery, the BMS, has turned it back on, and now it's outputting and supporting the you know, the load. So basically we got these two outer batteries are a little bit out of balance with the rest of them. So as the system is charging up, the BMS probably in this one, because it was the last to come back on, one cell gets too high. One cell gets above 3.65 volts, and it does a cell over voltage, and the BMS cuts it off. And then this one comes in shortly after that. Okay? And what happens is when the BMS cuts it off and removes it from the you know, from all the batteries, that's when you see a voltage, you see that voltage spike. It just spikes instantaneous as the BMS cuts it off. And that's what's happening. So what I've got to do is we're going to go in and we're going to change the settings. Okay, we're going to change the settings of our charge controller, probably down to around, because now we're at 13.8. We're probably going to change it to like 13.8. That's just below the 13.9, which the batteries turn back on. And then we're going to just let it run for a week that way. And then we're going to slowly increase the voltage on the charger. And as these batteries, you know, charge up to 13.8 and 13.9 and 14 and on up, that they'll be balanced. They won't cut out during charging. All right, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, what we got to do now is we got to go up to the 3 dots in the top corner and then go to settings, and then we'll see here, typically I had it set for lithium. Okay, so what we want to do is, in this case where I want to lower, you know, the charge voltage on it, you know, and the boost voltage down to 13.8, Gonna have to go to user, okay? And now I can go to each one of these settings and I can change it to 13.8. Okay, now I'm going to save it. Okay, now I'm going to go to the next one, change it to 13.8 and save it. Okay, and that, look at it, already changed the float voltage for me. So now we're set for 13.8, so the battery bank is not going to charge up above 13.8 so that those batteries don't cut off, and they're held at that higher voltage. And when these batteries are held at that higher voltage is when the balancing takes place. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and turn the panels back on so that it'll start charging at 13.8. Okay, I got it back on, and you can see that the battery bank actually got up to 14. What that is there's about a 0.2 volt difference between what the Renogy reads and what the battery voltage is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it down now to 13.7. 13.7. All right, we're going to turn it down to 13.7. So we're going to go back into settings, and I'm going to change these all to 13.7 volts. Oop. Okay, now it's all set at 13.7. We'll go back in and check it. Okay, good. Now we can, let it run at that and make sure that the batteries stay in the bank. Okay, the battery voltage is down. Now we set it to 13.7 in the charge controller, and the bank's at 13.9. And it's just pulling about it's just charging at about 0.6, amps, and it's slowly going down about 8 watts. And we can see over here, this battery is still in the bank. Okay, it's getting its share of that 0.6 amps that are going in there. So we got it set properly now. So we're going to let it sit at this for a week, and then we're going to turn it up about 0.1 volts per week until we get it back up to 14.4, and we'll put it back in the lithium setting, and then the bank will be balanced. Okay, the bank is pretty much fully charged right now. Okay, and this is drawing nothing. Oh, time down on me. This meter does that. But it's not pulling anything right now because we're not really getting anything charging anymore. So, but the one way to test this, to see if it is still part of the bank, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the inverter and see if we'd start pulling some power out of the battery. If we do, then it's still part of the bank. All right, so you see that? So it's now helping to power the inverter, which is pulling about 0.8 amps. Okay, so now if I turn the inverter off, we'll see that current draw in that battery go back down to pretty much nothing. Okay, so yeah, so we see that this is still part of the bank. It hasn't cut out. So we're good to go at our voltage setting in the charger for 13.7 volts. Okay, we've been balancing for quite a while now, so let's go in and take a look, and we'll see how it's been doing. And I've discovered a kind of a funny little thing going on with the 100-watt charge controller also. So we'll go to the 100-watt charge controller. History, November. We'll come in. All right, there we go. We'll go down and take a look, and we can see that we had some real voltage spikes. A couple at 16.3 and one at 18.8. And what was happening there is two of the batteries were cutting off because they were out of balance. So we take a look. I had set the voltage down to 13.7, so we'll see on 1129 and 1130. Now these dates might not be all that correct, because what this app does is if you turn the thing off and turn it back on or reboot it, it kind of pushes all the data back a day. And every time you do that, it just pushes it back another day and another day and another day. So these dates aren't absolutely correct. So you can see that on the 29th and the 30th, it was 13.8 on the 29th, because that's the day I set it. And then so on the 30th, it only charged up to 13.7. So now let's switch over and we'll go to December. While it's loading. Okay. We'll get down to max power, and we'll see on the first 13.7, and then I turned it up by 0.1. You'll see on the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth, it charged up to 13.8, and then I turned it up again to 13.9, and then on the 7th, it actually went up to 14. There was a few days of no sun where it didn't charge back up, and then it went up to 14. So I turned it up a little bit, and it went up to 14.3, then only went up to 14 because there was a lack of sun. And then we see a couple days of 14.2, and then I think then I turned it up to 14.3, but you'll see on the 17th, it went to 15.3. Okay, and then the next day, 15.1. So we're going to get back to that later. That's really not a voltage spike. We'll get back to that a little later. And then you'll see on the 19th and 20th, it's listed as 14.3. And then every day after that is 15, and all these other, but these aren't from this machine, because once I saw these, that it was logging like a 15, I switched over to the other charge controller. So let's go look at the 40. We'll go to history, December, we'll let it load. Now some of this in December we could because again, this had been turned off for quite a while. So any of this in the beginning of December, okay, up to like the 13th, is all data from the last time it was turned on that was still in there for the month it was on. Okay, because this thing had been off till right around the 10th. So what I did is when I switched it over on the 10th, I put it right to lithium. You can see that it's been charging to 14.4, 14.5 every day. So it's getting a full charge now, except for the 28th. On the 28th, I mean, it was a cloudy day and I had charged some things, so we didn't get a full charge on the 28th. But you see it's charging full every day now without spiking. So that means that all the batteries are now balanced, and we can get the whole bank up to 14.4 or 14.5 without any of the batteries cutting out. So my balancing is done. So let's go back to the 100 amp, and I want to show you this weird thing I found out that it does whenever it fully gets to fully charged, and there's something wrong with it. And when I had bought this, it was like a refurb, so I got it at a lower price. But if we go back to November, even let's go back to October. That's loading. Okay. We'll see down here we had like a 17 volt. A day that it went to 17 volts. So that was probably a spike. Okay. And there's a lot of 14.7s, 15.2, 15, 15.1. So something's going on with this charge controller that when it just doesn't charge to the upper end and stop charging properly. So you looked at on the 10th, there was one at 17. So that's where it charged it up enough that day that it created a spike, even on the 1st. So there's something going on with that charge controller. So I can't put it in lithium. So what I have to do is I have to put it in the user mode and just leave it at 14.3. And then it works fine. It charges everything up and just stops, and everything's fine. Okay, to make a long story short, we've got the battery bank. It is all balanced now, so those batteries aren't cutting out. And then this one I have set for user at 14.3 so that it doesn't cause that problem at the upper end. But this one I have set for lithium. So what'll happen is this one will charge up the battery bank till it gets to 13.3, and then it'll stop charging. And this one will finish it and top it off. So that's the way I'm going to run it for now. I'm not going to worry about returning this. I mean, it just seems to do just fine if you just set it a little bit lower and it doesn't get to that higher end. So that's just the way I'm going to continue it. So I hope you liked the video of how you can balance your entire bank. I mean, it takes quite a while. It takes a number of days to do it. But you just slowly, you start low so that the batteries don't cut out, and then every 3 or 4 days just up it by 0.1 and just let it charge to that new voltage level, and then the BMS will activate and balance your batteries. So if you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Solar on.